Welcome to our 2025 Menu Movers and Opportunities webinar. I am super happy to be joined. First, I guess I'll introduce myself. I'm Renee Lee. As you see on there, I'm a trendologist and a senior publications manager with Data Central. And I am super happy to be here with fellow trendologist and associate director, Claire Conahan. She is one of the masterminds behind the MAC, which we will be talking all about today. So I am super happy she is able to be here and talk about her baby with us. So welcome. Thank you for joining us, Claire.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think it's gonna be a good one. We'll see.
So first things, just a little reminder, we've got some amazing webinars beyond Simply Smarter. So coming up next week, we've got our Future of Drink webinar that will talk about our adult beverage trends to watch for the near future. So make sure you tune into that. We have in November, we have our last installment of our go to market series of webinars. I always want to say go to meeting. Remember when we used to go to
I
meeting and
do.
that was like GTM. So I apologize. I will always hesitate a second there, but it is our go to market series. So the last one of that you won't want to miss. Next month, we will also dive into 2025 winter trends. And then, believe it or not, 2026 is already right around the corner. So, in December this year, which is a little earlier than we normally do, we will unveil our 2026 trends event. So, make sure you go online to datacentral.com/webinar to see all of these wonderful offerings. And then it's always great to see and talk to everyone virtually, but as you probably all can feel, it is not quite the same as actually connecting in person. So, thankfully for all of you, we will be at a variety of conferences in the next couple months. So, everywhere from Orlando to Claire, I believe you're going to Charlotte next month, right? I'm gonna be
Mhm.
rocking some pickle earrings, maybe pickle attire. And then we'll also be at IFMA's President's Conference coming up in November there. So um, I will not be at Market Vision, Vicky. That was a nice one to, ooh, Orlando. I would definitely go there. But good one to have on the radar for maybe next year. So let us know if you are going to be at these conferences and want to meet up. We would love to chat with you there. And then quick reminder, Data Central One, that is our brand new, amazing, all you can eat, all in one platform for all of Data Central's amazing insights, menu trends, all of our different platforms and tools, including Report Pro. So if you are not on that yet and you want to go for a little test drive, we got our free trial that is ending in just a few days. But we, for the free trial, you can put your ear to the little door in your computer or your phone and try out social listening. So see what is going on online and all these different social media platforms. Claire is actually going to go through some examples today from social listening, so you can kind of get a peek at that. And then also our amazing generative AI search in Report Pro. You can also put that into your test drive. So feel free, Valerie, to either talk to your Data Central, person here at Data Central, or you could also send an email at hello@datacentral.com. That will make sure that the right person gets back to you about the free trial. So thank you for asking and bringing that up. Now, of course, our PSA for everyone, make sure that if you are chatting, make sure you present to everyone or chat with everyone. So under the little drop down in your chat box, you will be able to either do hosts and panelists, which is fine and dandy, but Claire and I would love for you to share with the whole class. So make sure you go to everyone down there. And just to test that feature out, we have our little icebreaker. So, Claire, do you want to introduce this? This is one that I think you cooked up here.
Yeah, I'm curious what's a food that you love that most people hate? Oh, we've already got some of
Ooh.
the like classic controversial ones, some that we'll talk later.
Mhm.
Ooh, I'm very excited. Do you have
Lutefisk.
one, Renee? I actually don't know. We don't hate a lot of foods. So we love a lot of foods though.
We do love a lot of foods. I think the classic and quintessential one is chicken feet.
Ooh,
I'm
I
a
was just
big
telling my daughter when you had all of those at the Chinatown dine around, she was like, "How
yes.
does it work? There's not much meat." And I was like, "It works exactly like it sounds."
Exactly. I love chicken feet, something I grew up with, but not for many people. But I think everyone should try stuff at least once. That's what I try to tell my son, and he doesn't do that. But what about you, Claire?
I have a lot that we'll talk about later, some that have been mentioned, but I love bugs. Like we got into bugs as data central. I feel like crickets have tried to take off. So when I saw this next slide, did anyone else see this news article this week? I love like the cricket flower was such a thing a long time ago. And when I was pregnant with my daughter, we like got cricket samples. And I remember Googling like, is cricket safe for pregnant women? Turns out it's a super huge protein all around the globe, especially for pregnant women, so totally fine. And I still eat them, and we get them for my daughter. And she and my son love them. But we ordered her black ants was like one of her requests for her birthday, like a normal person. And so when I saw this article, which features, did anyone else see this? It was like published in a very, very like scientific journal, but it was also on CNN, which is where I saw it come across my feed. So we've got yogurt, I guess. Ant yogurt is a traditional fermentation method in Bulgaria. And so there have been like experimentations to kind of bring it back, including this fine dining example here, where the same person who wrote this article and helped co-publish it actually started doing this at Alchemist in Copenhagen, and they're using it in like an ice cream sandwich that's in the shape of an ant, a fat washed cocktail using that same yogurt fermented with ants and then cheese. The idea being that the ant introduces like special, special stuff when you trap it in your milk, and then it's magically turns into yogurt a few days later. They're, of course, taking it up a notch and like burying it in an anthill, which does not sound like it's a necessary part of the process. Though they did warn in the CNN article that there's like food safety concerns. So if anyone was very excited to make their own ant yogurt, probably don't do that unless you happen to be a food scientist for real.
You'll have to find someone to obtain that from, Claire, instead of making it yourself, unfortunately. Well, moving on from that, let's see what's new on Report Pro, Claire.
Oh, so much is always new in Report Pro, right? So we've got tons and tons of stuff here. I wanted to feature, we always like to feature a little bit from each member of our publication team. So this one is Quality versus Aesthetic from Hui, so who we all know from the webinars. And he wanted to dive into, the idea of, is it at this point, sometimes it feels like it's more important that something just looks cool than that it tastes cool. Ultimately, not to reveal too much of what's in here, but taste is most important, but it should also look a little cool for certain demographics. So that one's in Report Pro now. And then this one, it was Jacqueline, I believe, Global Spices and
Mm,
Seasonings. It was you.
it was me.
It was you. I got mixed up. This one's Renee, everyone, in case that's even more exciting. So this one I loved because it highlights lots of the spices. I'm like a spice hoarder, so I loved this one for all of the spices that I've been using and some that maybe I should add to my cupboard. So this one's a really good one if you just want. We'll talk about it later with the Mac, but spices are such a good gateway to different cuisines. So this one I feel has like a lot of staying power, especially. This one, we had so many emails to the publication team. When's this coming out? When's this coming out? This is one of our keynotes from Emily on the team, and people were super waiting for this one. So I wanted to highlight it. This one was always a popular report in Report Pro, but this next edition, over the years, people have asked for different iterations. How do you use it as dips? What do you see as the difference between dipping sauces and sauces? And there's all that and more in here. So this one's a really good one. And everyone knows, maybe not everyone, this one's Steven on the team. This one, I have a soft spot for Buzz because it's just like some of the funkiest, most in-depth data we do. And it really does put some context around that hard to define category of refreshers and functional beverages. So I believe this is the second edition of this report. The first was last year, and it's just got lots of really cool detail. We highlighted some of it when you and I did that non-alcoholic beverage webinar back in the spring. And this one has some new data on how things are shifting, so it's a cool one to check out.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Yeah, we get a lot of questions about refreshers. What exactly is a refresher? Because they're not always called such. So that one answers, I think, a lot of questions that people might have on that category.
Yeah, and this webinar is a little different. We've never done this exact type of webinar before, so you can feel free to let us know how you feel about that at the end when we ask for your commentary as you sign out and exit. But we do realize that lots of the folks on the webinar know a ton about the menu adoption cycle. They're longtime clients, they know everything about it and all the details. And lots of you might be here for the first time or not know as many of the details. So before we talk about menu adoption cycle, MAC movers and opportunities, we should talk about the menu adoption cycle. The report with refreshers was our part of our Buzz program, Jennifer. So the stages of the MAC, we'll look at an official menu adoption cycle, which I'll call MAC probably most of the rest of the webinar, and so will Renee, because if we say menu adoption cycle, we won't hit our hour and it will be set. So the stages of the MAC is a framework that Data Central created, and we've done it for decades now. And the idea is that trends follow a fairly common life cycle. They start in the same way and keep going as far as they can go. Generally speaking, trends start in inception. This is like the original way in which a food, flavor, or ingredient is offered. This is like a fine dining restaurant. It might be, I have to search it out. Lots of those spices Renee wrote about in her spices report. You have to like go to a specific area of a major metro because that's the cuisine that has that spice. You have to go searching out that ingredient, special ordering it for usage at home, or they're featured at like a fine dining restaurant. That's like the classic. Then they move to adoption. Most of them do, as long as there's, supply chain enough for it, that it's approachable enough. When they hit adoption, they start to transform a little bit. They might not be as admittedly authentic as they were in fine dining. They're starting to be created and made a little bit more approachable. You might see them paired in applications that would be less traditional, but are more approachable. This is going to be fast casual restaurants. So Panera, Chipotle, they're all going to fall here. And then your more common kind of specialty grocers. So like a Whole Foods or a Trader Joe's might fall here. Then they're going to move to proliferation. That's going to be your classic quick service and casual dining restaurants, especially chains. So like a Applebee's might fall there, any McDonald's, all of those types are proliferation. And then more traditional grocery stores, whatever your grocer of choice is, or like a mass grocer, like a Target or a Walmart would fall to proliferation. And then ubiquity is as it sounds. Not every trend gets to ubiquity. There's some things that kind of can prevent that moment from happening. It can take a long time to get there. But ubiquity is when they're found everywhere. So if a school might offer it, you can grab it at the dollar store. You can kind of get it anywhere. That's ubiquity. And then this
Amazing.
next slide shows what they look like. This is not what they look like. This is the prettier version of what they look like that our marketing team has put together. This is an old Mac. So if you're like, oh, that looks a little odd, this is actually from 2014. This is what it looked like in 2014 and things we had our eye on then, which I think it's very fun to like look back and see how things have shifted. But this is an example of one, and also a reminder that sometimes things, it does take a long time. This is from 2014. It's over a decade old at this point, right? And Zatar still hanging out in inception. So it can take a long time for a trend to move along this place. And that's a great question, Christy. There is no difference above or below the line. It does not matter if it is further to the right or the left. I type in a word into the admin and it just kind of populates it. So the phase matters if it's an inception, adoption, proliferation, or ubiquity, but the location on the Mac, there's no meaning behind that.
That is a good question. I feel like we get that one a lot, and I
It's a
wondered
good one.
myself as first.
All right, Renee, are you going to tell us about the biggest movers on the Mac?
Yes, so this is an exciting one. We're going to start off with some foods and flavors, beverages, cuisines, all types of things that have moved the most on the Mac recently. So these are things that are clearly gaining traction and could be opportunities for a lot of you listening in. So the first one is Filipino cuisine. And now, so we do have, one like what do you call it, Claire, like one super Mac or like the general Mac of all Macs, that kind of is, overall, but then there's also little Macs in their own universes, right? So
Yeah, so
a
I'll talk
lot of
about like
these
home cuisines where something like
mhm,
lives, like where its true bases, like for Zatar, its home cuisine is like the savory sauce or the spices and seasonings or savory sauces Mac, menu adoption cycle being Mac. But then there's smaller ones. So it might be in a different place for chicken or something like that.
Oh, Mac Daddy, I like that. Yes. So many of these are, within that specific home Mac, right? So Filipino cuisine, I've been waiting for this one to pop. I think in Chicago, if you're familiar with our landscape, we have a lot of Filipino bakeries and restaurants and things like that. So it often feels, at least to me, a lot larger than what it is probably on a on a US scale, but within global cuisines, it has moved from inception to adoption. So that is very exciting. And we see things like frozen lumpia, right? That's their the little super crispy little delicious spring rolls. And we have that description there for anyone who isn't familiar maybe with that term per se, but that can help some of these things that are earlier stage for people to know, okay, I don't know what a lumpia is, but it is a Filipino style spring roll. Then we see things like ube, Payway this year. They did their ube milk tea. And of course, ube continues to go very strong. It's super quintessential in Filipino food. So that has definitely bolstered, the cuisine overall. And then also we have a couple different, that's kind of the science behind a lot of this art and science of the Mac, which Claire will probably talk about a little bit as well. But some other things that Filipino has going for it, things like Kasama in Chicago. They became the first Filipino restaurant to win a Michelin star. So, of course, that adds and bolsters the cuisine in general. So, they have things like a very elevated Wagyu ribeye bistek that you see here, and they have Kewpie mayo scrambled eggs, which sounds delicious and nice and fluffy and soft. And then also calamansi onion jam. So kind of, taking something like onion jam and mashing it up with calamansi, which is a lesser known citrus, but it has a lot of places, it has its place in Filipino cuisine as well.
Okay, there were
Moving
two
on.
questions, so I'm going to
Oh,
interrupt you before you go, unless you
yeah.
didn't catch these. So since I wrote them, I'll say the time frame for these movers was a question. These are all from the 2025 update of menu adoption cycles. So it includes things from the Q4 2024 data, because that comes out in kind of January, February, up to our current set. So they're recent movers in this kind of calendar year of updates. And then somebody else asked a question on if things ever move backwards. Generally, no. What we will see, and this happens a lot, I know Renee in our trend decks, it'll be more that you'll see something that was maybe in ubiquity being done so much in such a new way that we'll have to like figure out a way to say it. So like
Mhm,
reimagine chicken sandwiches or like
mhm,
the new way with whatever. So that it's
mhm,
uncommon that something moves backwards. That's a very, I actually can't think of any instances in which that occurs, unless there was like a very, very major disruption, probably to like a supply chain. And then you
mhm.
can't take back people's memories of things. So it's already like gained a certain amount of affinity and awareness. So we don't typically move things back.
True, but yeah, like you said, something specific about
It's
a
more likely
trend
that
can be
something will
reinvented.
stall out, like it moved very fast from inception to adoption, and then it's kind of stuck there because we don't have the ability to scale beyond kind of a fast, casual, smaller chain. So go ahead, Renee. Sorry.
Yeah, no, no worries. Thank you for checking the chat. Sometimes I'm like, lots of things going on. Yes, tamarind is one of my favorites. they have this little tamarind candy that I always grab from the Asian grocery store. It's such a great sweet and sour, which is, that classic combination before spicy ever became a thing. So tamarind is great in savory sauces and flavors. That's the Mac that it moved from inception to adoption in. So we see things like being paired with citrus in this tepache modern Mexican soda. We see it used in a dipping sauce for egg rolls at Cheesecake Factory. There in the second picture, it's a tamarind cashew sauce, which sounds very intriguing. And then even in 2023, Popeyes had this is kind of a nice little deep cut. I had no idea that they would talk about honey barbecue as having flavors of tangy tamarind, but they said it was tangy tamarind, sweet honey, and smoky molasses. So tamarind is up there, and then sugar cookie. So, of course, cookie is pretty ubiquitous when it comes to like just, cookie flavors or cookie types. But as we know, with a lot of desserts, they all often become a flavor themselves, and that's how they can maybe move on beyond certain stages. So, this is a great example as a dessert flavor mover. Sugar cookie is moving from adoption to proliferation. So we see things like Fat Boy, which I love that name. I've never heard of that brand before. But we've got Fat Boy ice cream sandwiches that is flavored in sugar cookie. And then we've also got this very unique, colorful shake that is a Queen Frostine, I think, is what it's called at Scooter's Coffee. I don't think that was a misspelling, Claire, but is a sugar cookie iced coffee. So have your daily dose of sugar there. And then I think it was Adam who said, oh, sorry, one more slide. Cold brew. So we have cold brew that is my favorite kind of drug of choice or coffee of choice. And so that in non-alcoholic beverage flavors has actually moved from adoption to proliferation. So not just cold brew itself, but again, becoming a growing flavor within beverages. So we have things like this Stumptown Mocha Perk Shake at Burgerville, USA that has that cold brew in it. And then also Pure, they have a cold pressed, cold brew flavored almond milk protein beverage. So seeing that, and I can even see, like cold brew flavored ice creams or other different things, shakes, as we say, with the non-alcoholic beverage. And then Adam, I think you'll like this one as well. Tahine, we've got that as a spicy mover. So as we talk more about spicy combinations that go kind of beyond, just hot honey and things like that, we can see a lot of crossover with tahine. So you've got that spice, and then kind of paired with the sweetness, right? So we see that collab with Snack Club. They have the tahine peach rings there, so get a little bit of spice with your sweet peach rings. We've got a mango nata there as well on the right, a strawberry mango nata at Sonic, I believe that was. And then Mission Brand even has tahine flavored tostadas, so kind of infusing the tahine right into a base for a dish right away. And then we're going to see what's new to Inception. So these are all really interesting, and I'm excited for you to talk about some of these kind of very cutting edge new things that have made it onto Inception on the Max, Claire.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I'm hoping I pronounce everything correctly because even though I know about something and its origin, I always have to triple check pronunciation for early things, but we'll see how it goes. So we'll get into our inception trends. And there was a question, will cold brew continue its growth? Our system, if I recall, like their menu cast has it continuing to grow both as flavor and in general. And there we will get into other, we're just seeing, caffeine is sort of an interesting one. There's people who are really loving on super caffeinated and then kind of leaning away from it, but I think it'll keep going a bit. So these are all inception levels. So they're brand new to the menu adoption cycles. They were not previously on these menu adoption cycles, even in the earliest, newest stage. It's not necessarily like these things are, of course, things that have always existed, but they are starting when we pick things for inception. we do try to pick things that make sense in overall trends and believe that they will keep moving. Because if we put everything that existed in the world, it would be really hard to read and impossible to do. Nobody can know everything. But these are things that make sense in the grander scheme of things. So Renee presented that Filipino food has moved from inception to adoption. So when we're evaluating the menu adoption cycles and looking at the data and thinking of the art, we're thinking, okay, Filipino is growing. What would make sense, in an inception stage? What are we seeing happen from a breakfast standpoint? Is there anything that we need to put on here that's important to that cuisine that we could see making sense in the general population? And silog is one of those dishes. And that just means, if memory serves, C is shorthand for the garlic fried rice that's in the dish, and then log is shorthand for the egg. And then you can add any protein that you like for kind of more complete. It's common to also add like a fruit on the side. This one I thought was so very approachable because, and it's very close to my neighborhood. It's from Taste of Philippines here in Chicago, but they did a crispy chicken, which this looks like a chicken fried steak, like
Mhm.
breakfast thing, right? We just swapped the hash browns or home fries for rice. And so I think it really is something that can make sense to keep going, and is something we wanted to add to those breakfast dishes because we are seeing a lot of those brunch places pop up across the country. And this particular dish feels like something that's really approachable because the flavors are also usually a little sweet, on the meat, and it really does work for, I think, an American palate. And then we do not do regional or demographic breakouts for the max because that's kind of all part of it for it to be in ubiquity. We're thinking about all demographics and all regions in the US, though I say that, and I have made regional specific in that it's like West Coast trends. So you can kind of get into some of those more nitty-gritty, very early stage things. An example being this one, I think, is also on one of the regional menu adoption cycles because it is one of the various regional berries. US regional berries, just, your huckleberries, all of those have had moments for a long time. We wanted to add this one to fruit because, full disclosure, it's hard to admit when you don't know something when you're a trendologist. It's like, I don't want to tell you that I didn't know. But I did not realize I saw this Juneberry ice cream at the NRA show, and I was like, how have I never heard of Juneberries? And it's because I know them as Saskatoon. So that is what I knew them as, but I guess these are all the same things according to some like North Dakota agriculture person. So I'm going to trust them, and I hope that's true. But we are just seeing in general US regional berries, but especially this particular one, which I think is arguably the least well known of the group, starting to show up in different places. And it's a pretty sour berry. So like Saskatoon is also being used, and I know for bitter or for worse, that's where I learned of Saskatoon. It's a good base for like non-alcoholic drinks, trying to be a little bit like more of that wine kind of tannic profile. So that's a fruit we're watching. This one is also a little special to me. I studied abroad in Spain. That's not why it's trending. It's trending because we are seeing people showing up, doing, lower alcohol things. The Aperol Spritz was a whole situation. We want budget friendly. We want to still be able to drink our booze, but we don't want to drink maybe quite as much as we could handle when we were a little bit younger. So we're trying to figure out good ways to sip all afternoon. And the Spaniards really, they know how to do that. And so we're seeing trending for Tinto Verano, which is red wine mixed with like, they have a particular lemon lime soda, but just a lemon lime soda. And then the Basque version of that, which is Calimocho, which is Coca-Cola instead of the lemon lime. So Coca-Cola and red wine. And yes, you can do this with like any sort of thing, any sort of spritz. I just learned today there's a sherry specific one that somehow Andalusia did not tell me about while I was there, and I'm personally offended. And that one's called Ribojito. And I guess Lady Gaga is into the Calimocho. She just calls it a cola red wine. But if it's good enough for Lady Gaga, I think it's got some potential here.
Yes, definitely. I like that.
I'll say it is admittedly a good way to use cheaper wine.
Mm,
It's also if you're experimenting with NA wines and you get a clunker, it's a great way to kind of make that work out. And it's also a good way if you had one that's like maybe 1 or 2 days open and you didn't store it as well as maybe you should have. It's a great opportunity to make a spritz.
mm. Yeah,
Another
can't let
one.
anything go to waste.
We got to be thrifty, which I feel like is another, like, speaking of thrifty, dessert variety that's trending is toast. which just feels kind of like silly to say. Hasn't toast had like 101 moments? But this is the general, Asian desserts have been trending for years and years. This particular concept is that generally speaking, Asian desserts they're not as sweet as most American desserts, right? We don't need to be quite as aggressive here with our sweets. And people, I think, in the US are starting to get used to that and enjoying it. So we're seeing a lot of different toasts that really highlight all of the like beautiful, like more fluffy milk breads that are from all across all of Asia. So there's Shibuya toast, which is also called honey toast and brick toast. So then you hollow it out and fill it with tasty things as pictured here. And then there's also a Vietnamese coffee brick, which is a similar concept to this theme. That's true. Sprinkles are popular. I personally have my eye on Australian cuisine, like fairy toast too. So that's like I think there's
Mm,
a lot of opportunities for toast as dessert option since you can't have enough toast apparently, and it's inexpensive, which is another theme.
true. And a lot of cross utilization for restaurants as well, right? If you have the same type of bread and toast options for breakfast or even lunch with savory items, you can reinvent that with a toast dessert.
And it's a good platform to build off of. Another one we're watching is quinota. So we've got this being that's the same name as the Italian orange, the bitter orange that the soda is made from. There's a ton of different brands that do it. We're starting to see it, and it's kind of being driven by the same different trends that are showing up for kind of the Tinto Verona, right? We want to do lower alcohol. We want to be able to drink all the things and space it out throughout the day. So this is another one that people will use. They might water it down with just some sparkling water, kind of out in the style of Aperol Spritz, because it can be quite sugary for some people. And the sandwich, this particular photo is from Monte's Fine Food in Portland, Maine. And they noted that their soda pairs perfectly with this is such an on-trend sandwich of when this was published, which I think was like January or March or so. It's mortadella and burrata, which is like pretty trendy sandwich components. And then we've got, there's of course, I feel like we're really at the moment of, it's hard to say like, oh, a continent is about to start to become popular. But I have been hearing a lot more about African cuisine, and I feel like people have explored so many different continents now that they're ready to maybe branch out a little bit with their foods. And there's so many incredible chefs doing really cool and highly visible things with really neat cookbooks. And so there's a lot of buzz once again around different African flavors. We particularly have our eye on a variety of them, but also this hold on, obe ate um, Nigerian pepper sauce. And this is one of those that if anyone's heard of it, they're probably like, Claire, it's not a sauce, it's a stew. You're saying it wrong. And it's one of those kind of core base foods for the cuisine where it's all of those things, where everyone's version is different, where the core component is like the core component of lots of dishes, right? It tends to be peppers, usually like red peppers and then some hot peppers. It sounds like Scotch bonnet is almost always included. There's not too much controversy. What do you do with the other peppers is up to your family recipe. So it's tomatoes, peppers, onion, and then spicy peppers if you're choosing, often roasted, and then you can blend them up as much as you desire. And this is where it becomes kind of sauce or stew. I guess if you leave it like that and you put some meat in it, you have created stew. But if you simmer it all the way down, it can also become a dip. It looks like lots of kind of the up and coming restaurants showing off Nigerian and other African foods in the country in the US are using it as like a dip that you might serve on like almost like a chips and dip type platter. So this is one we have our eye on. And then I can't say we gotta have tacos, right? So we've got tacos Orebes, which Renee, I know you also love. I didn't realize we were both lovers of this. And it's for anyone who's less familiar, you can kind of think al pastor, but it comes from Middle Eastern immigrants who went to the state of Puebla, and this is kind of the taco that resulted from that natural kind of mashup that happened there. And the key is that the tortilla is like a special tortilla. It's pan árabe, so it's it's like a flour tortilla and it's like a pita, but it is neither of those things. And so it's meat sliced off the skewer like al pastor, and then with a little bit of flair of usually like Middle Eastern style toppings is showing up. And this particular one, I'm not telling you what everything is. I keep forgetting. This one is mijo in New York City. So the bottom, from bottom to top, it's carne asada, then there's your taco arabe, and then a taco de mole. And their particular one, it's common to be shawarma spiced pork. And then theirs has labna with spicy chipotle sauce.
Very nice. Yeah, yeah, we were talking about from Puebla. There used to be a really good sandwich and Semitas shop in Chicago here, that Semitas Pueblas, that had this as well as a bunch of Semitas that were delicious. But that is how I had heard of these.
And then we did, as Renee mentioned, we brought in some social for all of these because the menu adoption cycle, when you're in those early stages, it's both art and science. So the science is, of course, what we have in our Data Central One platform, right? I can check social media, I can check menu trends, I can see people's affinity in consumer preferences, I can see if that affinity is growing over time and with what demographics, and that helps me know how things are moving. And so that's one thing that we check. So we can check how this dish is doing and see who's offering it, how it's being shown off. Is it starting to kind of shift universes? And yes, this is very much Inception. Generally, for Inception, it's going to be within that cuisine type. You might see like a very forward-thinking casual dining place. I know when I was looking this up, there was a couple kind of more casual dining spots doing it that were just kind of regular, not necessarily Mexican cuisine specific. And then Peter had a question on if Algerian sauce would make its appearance soon. I wouldn't be shocked if we have a lot of new sauces and spices kind of showing up, because sauces and spices are really the way that people are most comfortable often trying a new cuisine, because you can use it on what you're comfortable in. And it gets to what Renee said about cross utilization. People, it just doesn't feel as bad to have 25 condiments you barely use in your refrigerator. I don't know what it is. It's a psychology thing, but it just, I think it is often the start for people discovering new cuisines.
Hmm. Good little gateway.
We've got a couple other little further out things that we're showing findings. So this one is kaymak, and it's a Turkish kind of, you can go to the mentions because this isn't a very exciting slide, better to see the pictures. So the mentions are, it's very tiny right now. It's a Turkish or generally Middle Eastern or Balkan kind of clotted cream yogurt dip type cheese situation, one of those where you can't quite put your finger on it. There's a couple restaurants doing, and if you go to the next slide, it'll show some of those instances. So it's been picked up by this glorious table a few times. And then there's some top engagement posts. We're seeing a lot of like Turkish breakfast showing up. There's been lots of interesting and all those like fun small bites that feel kind of festive, but are in some ways like just very light and have a broad range of nutrients to them. And they look really cool, which is, we saw that the quality and aesthetic is important in the hot shot that we did. This has a nice aesthetic to it for sure. So that's one thing we have our eye on, is that dip variety specifically.
Yeah, especially look at that third one. That whole table's filled. Like, where
That's
would you
like
even?
traditionally how it would be if you like really want to welcome a guest. Like
Yeah,
that is what
that's
it looks like.
amazing. I would go to whoever is hosting that for sure. A quick question from Elba. Tacos de Rebe is definitely Inception, right,
Hmm.
Claire?
Yeah,
Okay, mostly
we talked
Mexican.
about that a little bit.
Okay, gotcha. Let's see. Ooh, fish sauce caramel.
I would say fish sauce, caramel, and specifically, so this is one where like you could see it on the savory and sauces mac, but it's not happening broadly yet. And so we want to kind of focus in on where we're really seeing it. Maybe next year it will be added to that menu adoption cycle, but we're really seeing it happen a ton on wings. So we wanted to make sure it was there. And yeah, it's the fish sauce that you would use on clay pot. Yes, 100% the fish sauce caramel from Vietnamese and other Southeast Asian kind of cuisine, but we're seeing it really specially used on chicken wings. So you can see that big engagement thing showing up here. Yeah, there's been fish sauce wings at
Mm,
majorly popular restaurants for a long time, but TikTok and Instagram have discovered it. And so it can be, you can go to the next slide for some of the other engagement. It can be usually like traditionally, right? It's going to be very much heavy on the fish sauce, like fish sauce, water, sugar, like on in equal proportions nearly. Or you can do kind of a cheat that people are doing. And this is where it starts to become more approachable. And now people are putting it in lattes and affogatos, right? And that's that you just stir in a little fish sauce at the end. So like you really get that like salty flavor, but it's not necessarily quite, it's not as hard to make. And you can kind of just quickly jazz up whatever caramel you already have. It's definitely not authentic, but it's a quick way to kind of offer something different. These are more authentic applications. And then we're also looking, we have an entire breadings and coatings menu adoption cycle. That one really does tend to be heavily art because people don't call out as often, unless it's like a macadamia nut crusting or something. They don't tell you how the food is prepared quite as much on menus. So we do have to lean to kind of what we're seeing at retail and then what's happening on social media, and then thinking through generally kind of what types of things you could encrust with that would work. So Frico is one that we wanted to note. So this can be both like all the ones that show up in social media are more like that crunchy, cheesy crust that sort of happens on Detroit style pizza, kind of what encrusts the side of that when that sprinkles. But arguably, quesadilla is almost like this. And then we're also seeing the Frico crusted like chicken. So that makes a lot of sense. We already have a high protein food. Now we're going to cover it in even more protein. You can also do like the frizzlies, like on the cabbage here, or you can kind of make it almost like a quesadilla or carrier, like in the middle, where they kind of wrapped it around something else.
Oh, that's cabbage. I thought that was a croissant looking at it. And I was like, there's some bread with some more
I
crispy
mean,
carbs
I
on
would
it.
definitely eat a Frico croissant. That sounds amazing.
Yeah,
Somebody
that
make
does
that
sound
happen
delicious.
for us.
Yes. Oh, and pineapple bun. So I
And this
wanted
one's
to
you.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about this one, and I love seeing it here. I remember always going to the Chinese bakeries and getting pineapple buns. So it actually doesn't have any pineapple in it, if you didn't know, but it's because of the top, which you'll see in another slide here, that kind of looks like a little pineapple, but it's a very plain bun. As the base, and then the top just has this great texture to it and some sweetness. So my mom, who doesn't love super sweet stuff, will always go for the pineapple bun. But I remember as a kid being a little disappointed that it did not actually have pineapple in it. But we are seeing this kind of break out from, you see on this first engagement post there, it's kind of just the pretty regular pineapple bun there. You see it pineapple bun toast, cookies, Hong Kong style waffles, and then you see it as a carrier for that sweet and salty sliders on the right and the far right there. So I've even seen a lot on social media of the pineapple bun or bolo bao, which is what we called it, with a mashup of the barbecue pork buns, and that sounds really delicious. I need to get my hands on one of those
So I
because you
had
got
it as a carrier for a fried chicken sandwich, which I would
mm,
be mad about more of those.
yes, I love that sweet and salty, the swalty as I've heard it being called recently. So that is a great one to watch there. And then now I'm going to move into some heavy hitters. So I am not at all a sports person, but I do like this photo because you can see that is a heavy hit right there. It looks like that ball is going to go out into outer space there. But these are items that have recently moved from proliferation to ubiquity. So if you are looking for, here, a home run, if you're looking for a home run for things, here are some options. So we see, Korean barbecue moving in that barbecue realm there, going from proliferation to ubiquity. So we've got big players like KFC in 2024. They had their Korean barbecue chicken sandwich. So, going from the, all American barbecue type sauces to more of the Korean influence, again, with a lot of sweet and savory umami flavors. They had nuggets at first with that sauce, and then launched the had tested the nuggets and then launched the sandwich there. Smithfield with their pork, of course, they have all sorts of different marinades and such. And so they also have now this Korean barbecue flavored marinade. I can even see it, a lot of the grocery stores, especially around me, will have the kind of taco seasoned meat or things like that. And so I could easily kind of see this for more products as well, having it be in that Korean barbecue marinade ready to go. And then the next one here, breakfast dish mover. I love this, chicken and waffles. Again, kind of course, originally more of a regional trend, right? That definitely broke out of the box. Now it's in ubiquity. So in July 2024, we have this Jack in the Box LTO. You often think of chicken and waffles, especially if it's like the bone in big piece of chicken. You think of that as a sit down and have it as a with a knife and fork. But Jack in the Box reinvented it to make it to be on the go. So you've got your little dipping sauces there and the little strips of the chicken as well as waffles. And then this one sounds intriguing. Would you guys try chicken and waffles chocolate? That is, again, another take on sweet, savory, and also sweet and savory again. So, moving into that item as flavor. So, being a flavoring for this Hammond's a chocolate bar. And then we've got brioche, bread mover that is from proliferation again to ubiquity. So you see things like this Bob Evans LTO that show that brioche buns are now a new classic. Maybe with this move, my husband will not say brioche, which I think he had said one time when ordering from a menu, and I blushed for him and was like, brioche. But you see that curve line on the bottom there, looking at the menu growth since, what is that, 2015 and into the future. So steady as well as continued growth of brioche. And then we've got tofu. So moving in proteins, of course, has always been kind of, a go-to for a plant-based protein, but moving outside of the box into different applications. I've seen a lot of, especially with silken tofu, you don't really taste it. It's a lot of the creamy texture that can help it be in like smoothies or desserts or things like that. Add some protein goodness to your dishes. So this first one is kind of one of those examples. True Food Kitchen had this LTO of a strawberry passion fruit tart, and I had the passion fruit curd, almond coconut crust, tofu, and lime zest. And then also just different iterations, even in retailers, right? So we have things like the tofu cutlets in a savory orange flavor, I believe it says. Yes. So different iterations of that. We've even had you remember when we called Yuba Claire
Oh,
as
yeah.
a as an annual trend a few years ago. So that's kind of the tofu skin that is created when you make fresh tofu. And that has been trending on social media before as well. I've been trying to find it, and if anyone in Chicago knows where I can find fresh yuba, Trader Joe's had it frozen for a limited time, and then I went there specifically for it, and they said they did not have that anymore. I know they have like the bean curd sticks that are more used in Chinese cuisine, but I've been looking for that fresh yuba. People make it into noodles and such. And then Claire's going to take us through just a little, well, this is pretty self-explanatory, but a good little recap here of some of the variety of things that we have talked about during the hour.
Yeah, we've been told we want a couple more recap slides in case people want like one thing of what to take away or something to screenshot. These are the we chose the ones that are not the super early inception stuff, though you can of course reference this later when you get the deck. But these are the ones that are kind of more established, and they're not necessarily, I think, other than tofu and brioche. They're not necessarily all the way into ubiquity in like the main mac. So like barbecue is obviously a key area for Korean barbecue, but in overall flavor profiles, it's still in proliferation. So there's still time to hop on it. We're still seeing it continue to grow. These all still have growth, so there's a lot of opportunity for these particular things that we've already highlighted.
Awesome.
And then we do put this at the end because we know lots of you all have to hop to another meeting, but we did want to do some news and cool stuff. So I'll do mine first, and then we'll see the last of Renee's news and cool stuff for a little bit while she takes a leave here, and then we'll see her in 2026. So she's even more excited for the new year. So we've got a couple. These are ones that were all over social media. Does anyone else really want to try sunscreen ice cream? I deeply want to try the sunscreen ice cream. I think you had to be an influencer to get it. I am not an influencer, but if someone has the ability to send it my way, I would not be angry. But I meant to look up how to say this company. Do you know how to say this company? This is terrible. I never know. I always just hope it's
I
Van
always
Leeuwen.
in my Van
Leeuwen?
Leeuwen.
And yeah, the flavor, Heather, is that it ends up being kind of like coconutty. Van Leeuwen. Thank you, Emily.
Leeuwen.
So they are known for doing kind of out there flavors. They're always like the first, they were one of the first to do the like entree inspired thing with the Kraft mac and cheese back in 2021. Then they did their Hidden Valley Ranch. They're always up to collaboration. So they did this sunscreen cruise one with Carnival. And then as a Chicago person who does love Malort, such that I've even like sought out like experimental no ABV, no Lort in Chicago. So I am one of the people who thinks the flavor is worth making into an ice cream. When they came to Chicago, they joked with Jepson's that Jepson's made them take a shot of Malort, as Chicagoans will do. So now you have to eat our ice cream. So I thought that was, it got a lot of buzz. People really liked that a lot. And apparently I have ice cream on the mind. Oh, no, I don't think that as a Chicago native it should be outlawed. Disagree, but that is what we'll get to. That's such a
It's a
perfect.
rite of passage.
Thank you for setting me up for the slide that comes after this. So we've got, it's Halloween month, so I couldn't not do things that were orange. I love the color orange. True Moo always does like fun colored milk situations. So this one is orange creamsicle, which is a trendy flavor with the Hocus Pocus graphics. And then I had never heard of this ice cream pairing here. If everyone else is familiar with, I guess it's common in Montana. They call it Witch's Twist. And then it's also common in Canada, and it's called Tiger Tail. And so it's black licorice caramel swirls in orange flavored ice cream. And so we talked about Malort and we talked about black licorice, and I could not help but geek out on the data. Can you give me my data? I always need the data. So licorice, lots of people are not fans of, but there's a ton. We have two new features in consumer. Well, we actually have a ton of new features, but two that I'm going to highlight in consumer preferences. And it's that we can now see what people love or like when they like one thing. That was something people were always like, oh, it's so cool that you know what people love, but do they also love this other thing? I'm trying to build pairings. And I can tell you, here's the people that love or like black licorice, and you can see that overlap with orange. It's like a 94% overlap. Like that is a pairing winner for us black licorice weirdos, and of which I have one. And then we've got the next slide. I'm doing all the things that gross out everybody. So this is another thing we can look at, and this is fun. This is polarity. And so it's, we can look at hate and love, and like the classic way that we looked at that was the love-hate ratio, but this is polarity. So it's not just like that love-hate relationship. It's like, do you get lots of passion in each direction? Like that it is polarizing, right? So black licorice is one of the most hated flavors, but not oddly the most polarizing. So that's kind of an interesting one, but this is something else that's in the tools that you can see. And you see a ton of those things that at the beginning of the webinar when I asked what you ate, this is the list.
Yeah, I see the blue cheese is at the top. Oh, the
Blue cheese and
candy
then
corn
candy
even.
corn, which will lead
I
me
guess
into my last thing because I love all the gross flavors. They're my favorite.
candy corn is really sweet, but I wouldn't say it's like gross or anything. I don't
People do
know.
not love candy corn. It is
Yeah.
controversial and it is highly polarizing because it has equal amounts of people who love it and hate it almost, right? It's got that, what is that, 98? So 14% love it, 12% hate it. I'm on
Oh,
team love it. And for those of us that are on Team Love It, we should be hyped for my last news item, which
Ooh.
is this candy cane corn lemonade from Huey
Oh.
Magoo's, which I think sounds like a lovely seasonal option, and I would happily drink that. I did have a hot honey lemonade at a music festival, which I think hot honey and candy corn I would be really into.
Yeah, because candy corn to me is just really sweet. This one would be great if it had some orange like ombre to it. I actually saw a white dog the other day that was dyed as candy corn. So it had like candy corn ears and the feet. Oh my goodness, it was too much. I was like,
All right, and I
oh
think you have
goodness.
things that people don't hate, like I.
Yeah, so just a few more to wrap up here. So Mid-Autumn Festival is something that I've always celebrated, being Chinese and having mooncakes, but I thought it was interesting that, now it's kind of become a little bit more maybe into adoption, creeping up on that, if we want to use some Mac terms. We saw in our fall trends report that 15% of consumers celebrate Mid-Autumn Festival, which is not huge, but it's actually the fourth most celebrated, I think even more than Day of the Dead. And of course, Dubai chocolate taking over the world. We have a lot of people, especially in Hong Kong, doing some fun flavors with the Dubai chocolate and mooncakes. So we have this one. This one is actually from a place in Tampa. So they have that butter pistachio cake with tahini and katafi, and actually keeps the silky lotus paste, which is one of the more traditional flavors and ingredients. So there's that. And then we see, of course, a lot of tea breakouts, right? So we've got Claire's favorite word in the world, which is chumpkin. Very awkward to say. That is a returner from Big B Coffee. They have a chai pumpkin latte. They also have cider, which I think is a slightly more fun with a chai and cider. But then we also see some new things like Milano. I think it was last year or 2 years ago, possibly, they had the London Fog as an autumn exclusive or as one of their limited time flavors. And now they are out with chai latte. So we can see chai latte being a flavor, again, breaking out of the beverages just by itself. This is one of those fun ones. Buzz balls. They have you can see them in the background there, those little round, very strongly alcoholic drinks that are for on the go. But they have these kettle balls that they call them, that I think you could only win, through or buy through a contest or something like that. But so this is double tasking at its finest. You could be lifting your 5 pound kettlebell and then also be drinking back their grapes gone wild flavor at the same time. And then speaking of beverage and something that you hinted at a few slides ago, Claire, we have now hot honey Arizona teas. So there was a collaboration between Arizona teas as well as Mike's Hot Honey. So they have those spicy teas. How many of you guys would try this? I'm sure a good
I
handful
feel
of
like I should
you.
go try it. Do you think it would soothe my voice?
Maybe.
As honey, maybe, right?
Yeah. Yeah, or it could make it more fiery. I'm not sure. But this has like flavors like a mucho mango and a hot honey watermelon one as well. And so that is our cool news. And as we have a minute left, I will again remind you all of some of the fun things that are coming up. So, again, the last installment to our Go to Market webinar series is coming up November 6th. So, make sure you sign up for that. We are going to talk about data enrichment. And then again, 2025 winter trends. I believe, Claire, you will be on that one. I love this skiing ice cream graphic here. So tune in next month to our Simply Smarter on November 13th. And then gotta make sure we slid in right at 1 o'clock with this adorable little graphic to make sure that you see this and email us at hello@datacentral.com. Thank you everyone for tuning in. This was a great webinar, and thank you again, Claire, as well for joining me.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks everyone for spending lunch with us.
Yes,
See you
I have to
next
go
month.
do that. I have to go eat lunch. All right, bye everyone. Thank you.